We've got Plankton eating people, Jordan showing why he's the favorite, Michele showing why she's a puzzle queen, a short but significant location change, last second birthday parties, new friends from old foes, and one long night in the water for two legends of the game battling for that final spot. It's the Challenge Battle of the Eras episode 17. Yes, 17. Recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow Challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future. If it's happening in the Challenge universe, we are here to document it. I am your host and mostly dedicated Challenge historian, Jacob Hollabaugh. Thank you so very, very much for being with me here on this Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, whenever you may be listening. It's been a minute. Good to see you, talk some Challenge with you. I have missed the last couple of weeks unexpectedly. We were not here for episodes 15 or 16. We will touch just very briefly on them tonight in this episode recap. But I want to start by saying first and foremost that I am sorry and apologize deeply for missing these last couple of weeks, and especially for doing so unannounced and with no update. And then just suddenly there was no episodes there. And I had a ton of you reaching out, asking if everything was okay, if the show was continuing, what was going on. And I appreciate all of those messages so much. I know I haven't responded to most of them because with also not recording, I've also not been online a whole lot in general the last couple of weeks. So I know I've got a bunch of messages sitting there. I will eventually respond to all of you. I have read most of them. So especially if you're sitting out there like it says you read my message. I forget if you can see that or not on Instagram or whatever, but I will be responding to all of them. And I have appreciated every single one. We've missed the last couple of weeks due to some personal matters that have been going on over here at HQ that have kept me from being in the right mindset and the right mental space, or at times, for those watching, you can see new background, new apartment here, didn't have internet for a string of days there to go along with some of the things that were going on and just the mindset we were in. Recording just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't a good situation for me to do so. I'm not going to elaborate really beyond that. I thought I was going to. I don't really feel like this is the time or place to do so. I will say everything health-wise, because I saw a couple of the messages were, no, the bunions did not turn into some, life-threatening illness of any kind that I'm aware of, at least. I don't think that's possible. So health-wise, everything is fine. Just a bunch going on over here that has kept me from recording, and I'm going to keep it at that for now. I'm going to just leave it at that and just say, again, I am incredibly sorry to have not been here to recap the last 2 weeks and to have not given any heads up or notice as to that happening or why I was missing. I say or try to say every single episode that I love and appreciate each and every one of you listening or watching this right now. And I hope you know when you say that isn't just, the podcast host has to, say that he likes his listeners every week and to ask them to subscribe. It's none of that. It is true. It is real. I so appreciate every single one of you that tunes in, and can't believe how many of you there are that not just click play at some point or have automatic downloads turn on, but that actually listen to each and every word, the whole thing, every episode, all the way through. There is a lot of you, and I'm blown away by it every week. I'm blown away that anyone at all, let alone the amount of you that there are, care to hear what I have to say about this silly reality TV show that we all love so much. And as someone who produces podcasts for a living, that is my day job, as a podcast producer for other people's shows, working on other people's content and YouTube channels and everything else. I know very, very much what it means to miss episodes, to, how hard it is to find an audience, to build an audience, to sustain an audience, to continually give an audience something worth tuning back into and listening to, and how devastating it can be to miss even one single week of anything and fall out of the rotation. So if you replaced me in the last couple weeks, and I guess you wouldn't be here listening to this now, but I get how it works. If you've been listening to a bunch of other challenge content instead the last few weeks and I've been knocked down the rotation, totally understand. But I thank you. I appreciate you for being here this week and every week in the past. And I promise you that in the future, I might not never miss an episode again. But if I do, there will be some advance notice. There will be word put out as to why is happening, what's happening, anything of that nature. So thank you so much for tuning back in. Appreciate you being patient with me the last couple weeks. We've got a lot to cover tonight, so let's dive in. Programming reminders, because I actually thought there wasn't going to be a recap tonight, because until like 3 days ago, we thought there was no episode 17 tonight. It was supposed to be, as of last week's episode, there was going to be an All-Stars 5 promo or something today, and then they switched it up and they were like, nah, episode 17. As far as I know, there is no challenge episode the next 2 Wednesdays, because that is Christmas and New Year's Eve. And so I believe we will be seeing the finale of the episode of this season, or the 2-part finale, on the 8th or the 8th and 15th of January. And then we did have the official announcement today, All-Stars 5 on MTV, not Paramount Plus, on MTV, airing live starting on Wednesday, January 29th. So that means that, if I am correct and there's no episodes the next 2 weeks, which I think I am, there will be no podcast the next couple of weeks. We will come back to discuss the finale on Wednesday, the 8th, when the next episode airs. And then 2 weeks out from All-Stars 5, we will get you I think that actually might overlap. There might be slight overlap in the season recap of Battle of the Eras, the season preview of All-Stars 5, and then we will go right into covering All-Stars 5 when it debuts at the end of January. So that is what's coming up on the podcast front. If we could get things up and running in a good fashion here, I will have some additional videos and podcasts coming to you over probably around the New Year's time, first week of the new year. I've been meaning all season long, while we're watching Battle of the Eras, to do separate podcasts and videos for the top 10 men and top 10 women of each era of the challenge, at least the first 3 eras, and maybe even era 4. Maybe era 4, we only do top 5s because there's just a little less material to go with, but definitely for the first 3 areas, not doing top 10 all time, breaking it into era so we can talk about a bunch more people, top 10 women, top 10 men of each era. I'm still hoping to get those videos made, done, and out to you sometime between now and at worst before All-Stars 5 premieres in about 6 weeks from now, whenever that is. But look for those hopefully around the New Year's time frame, and we'll put 1 or 2 out a week, or maybe an era a week once we get them all made. So that's what you're looking forward to. As for tonight, I am going to hit a couple just very quick thoughts from the last 2 episodes that I have missed, just two or three very, very quick things, and then we'll move right into covering this entire episode and everything that went down in it. We're going to skip awards and, targets or anything like that this week, because we're headed into the finale, and go straight from, after covering the episode in depth, going right to looking back at our preseason predictions, how we ended up doing, and then making some thoughts and predictions for the final coming up here once we get into the new year. So, as always, again, final time I will say it, since I did a couple times before, I thank you for your patience the last few weeks. I'm glad to be back, chat and challenge with you. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in each and every week. Let's get to it. Battle of the Eras, episode 17, plus a wee little bit of 15 and 16. Here we go. Let's start with 15 and 16, the 2 episodes I missed, and a couple just quick things. And in all honesty, obviously, I hate that I missed any episode, let alone 2 in a row, but they were a little boring. Let's be honest. That was my number one takeaway. I could pretty much stop the recap of those 2 episodes there. Is they were a little boring because they were just very straightforward. And the biggest takeaway from watching them was, we don't need 90-minute episodes if there isn't anything happening in there. It's so straightforward. And we'll talk in the season recap about lessons continue to be learned every season, the same ones unfortunately being learned over and over. Like, we should have done the final by now. This doesn't need to be 18, 19 episodes plus a reunion. We don't need only 8 people left for the final. There should be more. The format, I like that we stuck to one format. That's amazing, but also it ended up not working out super well as far as the dramas, because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about in the season finale, or season recap. But these last couple episodes, and even really tonight's, it's like, look, we kind of know from the daily challenge who's going in, who's not. There's basically no drama going on, nothing really interesting, at least. And we've had a couple nice moments, certainly. The focus on Derek in last week's episode was super cool. Loved that, getting to tell that story more. We had gotten parts of it on the All-Star seasons, but having it, really come into fruition, have that moment that he did, everything like that was very, very cool. Backing all the way up to episode 15, the Tunnel Daily Challenge. I really liked it. It was very cool. I did I forget who, I don't think it was in the episode. It was someone online. I have no idea if it was a cast member or just someone else commenting, but what those tunnels were used for in the war, right? And we're just going to gloss over that. I found that kind of interesting. I didn't do any research to know what those tunnels were for sure used for or not, but we can assume they were a part of potentially that war that we fought over there that maybe we probably shouldn't have been fighting over there. Anyways, I digress. It was kind of cool, but I felt horrible for Aviv. I felt like, you guys put a couple sticks up down there in the dark to tell them you're not allowed to go that way, and she burst through it and no one said anything. It seems like they could have got her back on path a little bit quicker and helped her out a little bit, and it seemed a little bit unfair, but I digress. It was still kind of a cool daily challenge. And then Jenny beating Aviv, straightforward. Again, all of it was kind of just straightforward. Once we saw the elimination, which is a cool elimination, I liked it, but it's one of many. When it becomes a physical thing, it's if you get the right matchup, this is going to be great. But if you don't get a very even matchup, it's not going to be. And Jenny's a lot bigger than Aviv, and it just, was able to dominate that one pretty straightforward. And then last week's episode 16, the car stunt is one of those moments where I'm like, look, this looks cool. It's great to put in the trailer. I'm sure it's what a rush for those that get to do it. It's fun. They feel like they're in these action movies doing these crazy stunts. All of it, it actually does look pretty cool on camera. But it ultimately doesn't matter. The challenge is, are you willing to just do that? Okay, great. Then the challenge is the swimming portion. How fast can you swim? And we spent all this money and all these resources and all this time to build this stunt and be able to do it 9 times or 10 times, whatever they did. And I just feel like there's better ways to use our resources than that, even if it does look cool. And I bet it was super fun to actually get to do it. And then Derek gets the win over Corey. He's got the proper strategy. He may not have done a lot of eliminations in his seasons, but he's competed in enough of them, and he's watched a lot of them, and he is smart enough that he was the one that went in there and it was instant. I'm glad that we got the quick reference bananas back to this is how I lost Ride or Dies in some ways, a very similar situation here, a puzzle on the outside of bricks. But this is one, it was just, Corey's very experienced. He shouldn't, this isn't about, can you put the puzzle together? This is about, can you stop at the beginning and look at it and be like, what's the best way to do this? And the best way is put the puzzle together as you go, bring them over. And that was the key rule when TJ enunciates you have to put all of them on there. You can't do this on the ground. The strategy's right there. Derek got it. He crushed it. He wins. And I was thrilled for him, but I was really bummed for Corey. I found myself with every passing week rooting more and more for Corey above every single other person in this cast, and just really, really finding myself I want him to win. I want him to do well. I just love Corey. And so I was pretty bummed that he went home, but it was a great moment for Derek. And we were down to 9, which means we're down to actually the episode tonight. So let's go right to that. We pick up right where we left off last week, which was the announcement of a location change. Been a minute since we've had one of those. And as we get the confessional, Tori, are we about to head to the desert? Or are we about to head to a snow-capped mountain? And then no, we're not. We're going to hop on a plane and just go a little bit out in the ocean, an hour or two out in the ocean. In my first glance, I was we're in a different country. Yes, but you just flew out to the Philippines I'm sure it's actually a multi-hour flight, out across the ocean there. But, on a map, it's right there. They're next to each other. One's more mainland, connected, and the others is, a big series of islands a little ways out there. And at first I was did we need to do that at all? And then I came around in a big way. During the first commercial break after it, I was actually, this is the best idea they've ever had, because one, I kind of, it's fun in some ways, I guess, to do the incredibly grueling, you either got to climb a mountain or you got to go through the desert. But I'm pretty good with it just being in a hot, sweaty, tropical climate and be like, it's really hot. So it's going to be hard regardless. We're going to make you do really hard stuff. It doesn't have to be on the top of a mountain. It doesn't have to be running through a desert where it's much harder on our production team too. And it doesn't ultimately add that much to the show part of it, besides just being able to be like, oh, that one was way harder because it was the desert. So I was both okay with like, yeah, we just stayed tropical, and it kind of, like they brought back the location change without it being this huge travel. Because the other times when it's been like from Argentina to Norway, it's like, well, that seems like a waste. Again, kind of just inefficient of making this many people fly that far, probably in uncomfortable circumstances because you're trying not to spend too much money. This seems like a nice middle ground of like, we still have a location change, but it's right next door. It's not that far away. And we're just going to a place where we can have a really good production setup to make, the best possible version of a final as we can. So I'm all for it. I came around. My instant reaction was like, that seems a little pointless. And then I was like, actually, that's way better. And I love it. So they do the location change. And then we get pretty quick, a dinner scene. Everyone sell a pool party, everyone in the pool briefly, and then a dinner. And it honestly wasn't that interesting. And it is a telltale sign of everything I just said about the last couple episodes and the end of season woes that this season has had. This back third, it's too long. There isn't a whole lot going on. The drama isn't really there. That, I would have loved the one moment of the dinner where, Tori basically says the Vacation Alliance has been running things and, it's been a little boring. And Bananas is like, you were the machine. And I was like, oh, we're in for something here. This is good. And that was kind of it. Like, that was the whole conversation about that part. And then it just turns into the Bananas playing the victim thing, which I was with Jordan and Cara, who were both like, ugh, we're over this. Like, this is ridiculous of all people. But say it to his face. That would have been more fun and interesting than these confessionals. I feel like we've had a ton of that most of this season, but definitely the last 3, 4, 5 episodes of just like the little bit of antagonism we've gotten, the little bit of drama, or the little feuds and things have all been in the confessional booth saying stuff and not anyone to their face that much. So it kind of felt like the dinner scene fell flat as well. But hey, they were having fun. They were having a good meal. I was glad they were in a new spot. To the daily challenge we go, and boy, have they been making these people work. I feel like this wasn't like a mini final, but it was a big endurance test. And this is, I don't know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, like legitimate endurance test of the individual portion of this game. Like, they have been making these people work. It has definitely been for the endurance. Like, there's a reason we have such strong competitors and such, like the endurance folks have done really, really well on this season because they've been given a lot of opportunities to shine here, especially in the late game. This daily overall, it's fine. It's good. Like, it's a beautiful setting. Incredible setting, and I'm glad. At first I was like, how long are you gonna drag this out, or like we're gonna fast forward kind of to the end of the puzzle portion of this, right? And they eventually did they could have done it a little faster for my liking, but overall it was fine. But just the endurance ones, no matter how beautiful the setting, they do get a little boring and repetitive to watch, of just like, okay, we're on like the 5th confessional of Michele saying she's in last, and the 5th confessional of Tori saying she's just trying not to get last, and where we're just going to wait to find out which one of them gets last here. It just kind of drags on a little bit. As for the performances, though, they are very indicative. They can tell us a lot, as all of these endurance-based daily challenges have told us a lot about maybe what to expect in the final. Kyland struggles on the puzzle, and that was a bit of a surprise. It wasn't a surprise that you don't have to ace every puzzle. You don't be a puzzle king or queen by acing every one. You be it by having us feeling comfortable and confident that your probability of doing it really fast is a lot higher than everyone else's. It doesn't guarantee anything like that. It wasn't that he didn't do great or that Jordan beat him in it, caught him and beat him. It was that it seemed like, and maybe it wasn't, maybe because we don't see it in real time, it seemed like it took like a while and like multiple resets. And so just the kind of the system he was working through wasn't working, along with just kind of getting it wrong. So that was a little bit of a small warning for, like, I had him as like, could he beat Jordan in this final? To like, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with Jordan in this final if he isn't acing the puzzles to go along with all the other parts where he has shown he is able to keep up with Jordan thus far. Speaking of, Jordan does solidify it, like what I just said. He's going to win. He's going to win. There isn't anything anyone could do about it. I'm sorry. Kylan, Bananas, Derek, good luck. You better hope that there is you're partnered with so-and-so and Tori tore her hamstring while she was partnered with Jordan, and he had to try to carry her on the 10-mile run or something, like, so, which obviously I have a wooden desk, so I'll knock on it here for Tori's sake. I'm sorry for putting that out into the world, but something like that, like a partner really screwing him, is I think he's just going to run away with this. He is just so well equipped for a final, and we'll have is Jordan. Should we have been discussing that Jordan is maybe the best ever over Bananas and CT, win or lose this at this point? We could have that discussion later, but I just put that out there that I've been thinking about that a lot throughout this season and definitely the last few episodes. Jenny, the asthma thing is a big thing. We've been talking about all season long. I've been responding. The only challenge content I've had the last few weeks is a couple Twitter threads out there, some different questions and things I've responded to. I've had some people, and I put like Jenny on a fictional finals team, and some people were like, whoa, like the asthma, like she doesn't got the running anymore. And this proved to me that I'm okay with her as my winner's pick in the final, because I don't see a section of the final being longer, like one section without, some break or something else in between where you get to stand, being longer than what this daily challenge was. And while the asthma was definitely kicking in there, she pushed through and got to the end and performed incredibly well. And so I think she's got the stamina to get through each section of a final. And as long as it isn't like a full blown, like, go run 10 miles right now, which, we'll talk about it at the end, but they're out on a boat. They're not going to run 10 miles anywhere. We don't think. Maybe they go back on land. Who knows? We'll talk about that later. But the asthma slows her a little, but she ultimately wins it. And so I'm feeling okay that's going to be there. We're going to get some wheezing in the final, but that isn't going to maybe stop her from pulling off a win. Michele, true puzzle queen. She earns the status. She's had the status for a long time. She's backs up the status. As I said before with Kylan, a puzzle king or queen, to me, it's no guarantees. It does not mean you're just like, you're going to waltz up and you're going to get it done. But it means that I am very confident that your probability of doing it and doing it fast is really high, is maybe it's 80, 90%, again, never going to be 100 versus the regular person where it's like 50-50. I mean, is this something that my brain does well? Is it something that I don't? Am I flustered? Am I not? Is there pressure? Is there not? All those factors. If you're a puzzle king or queen, I think you're able to rise above those and just have a really good probability of handling any puzzle in any situation more often than not. And she proves yet again that she's able to do so, flies through that. So that spells very good for a final. Again, we'll talk more about the final at the end of the podcast here. And then the last one to mention is Tori. She gets last. Ultimately, it maybe does actually cost her. I know she wins the elimination. We'll touch on that in a second, but it still maybe costs her. But I think the bad part is, like, she's proven in all the other daily challenges. She's won 3 of them, 4 of them, whatever it's been, of the individual ones. I think if she wasn't just playing for last, that if she was a target and she was like, I got to try to win this to make the final, I don't know if she would have won, but I think she would have done better and beaten Michele. I think you never want to play to not lose. You want to play to win. You're going to perform better when you play to win. That's what I think there. So that's the daily challenge. Back at the house, we go immediately to the not chamber, to the dinner table or table, outside table, patio, whatever it is. And TJ is there. This might be the moment of the episode. We're not going to do awards for this week because it's going to already be a little bit of a long episode. So I'll just say the moment of the episode is TJ being there at the beginning and end of the deliberation and asking for the vote in person. Bring him back. Have him be there. Have there be more votes than the one person, and have TJ be there for the whole thing. It was way better that way. I love seeing him there in person for once. No drama really then to speak of the rest of the house. It's, again, this is why you don't whittle it down to 9 people. There's just nothing. not a lot to work with here. And thankfully, well, not thankfully, again, the Derek story last episode was fantastic. And the timing of it was good for television, but obviously the timing was based on a tragic event. So that's horrible in its own right. But we had then, was it Michele had a birthday fairly recently? And now in this episode, Cara's got a birthday. So like, they're lucking out a bit that they at least have like these things to like, oh, and the group does a really nice thing for this person. And this is a nice 3 minutes, heartwarming, everyone's friends again. And, nice little moment of the episode. We get one here with Cara, and we get to do the focal point on Cara and how she's grown so much and how she kind of feels like she's escaped the Laurel thing once Laurel left this season. And she's made friends with people who used to be enemies and the whole thing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I love that also that production obviously has to help. Typically in these types of situations, this is one of those where it's like the cast member asks someone like, hey, we want to do this. We can't leave. Can you go get us a cake? Can you do this, that, or the other? And they're like, yeah, that is a good idea. And that will make a good scene. So we'll procure it for you. That's usually how these things work. So I'm glad that they, have done things for each of these moments, these birthdays or celebrations of life and everything that they've done. But that's really all that we get. And so while it's great and I love, part of me is like, I really love that we're ending this celebration. This season is meant to be this big celebration. And so in the penultimate episode or the last episode before the final, if there ends up being 2 episodes worth of final, we are spending a lot of time celebrating Cara and growth in Cara, like, absolute figurehead of the show, face of the show for a long, long time. So that's really great. I just, again, wish there would be more to discuss about this section in this episode than like those little moments, but I'm really, really glad for those moments and that it was Cara specifically having that moment and getting that focal point. Then we're on to the elimination, and there's no arena. They head right on out to the SS Sinister, which is a disgusting looking boat and a beautiful, we'll talk more at the final and we'll see if it actually plays out. But I think it's going to be a really well shot and edited final, just because I think they, can set themselves up when they have this kind of starting point, center point of a final. They can base everything around it. They can be really set up. It's just from a production standpoint, really, really helpful. This elimination is brutal though. I'm in the one hand, I am kind of, if I'm Cara, I'm like, well, obviously is sometimes the worst, or could be argued the worst, to lose the elimination before the final. Most of the time, though, that happens, and like the throwback at the opening scene of this episode is DM, the last one before, losing on the duel 2 before the final. Oftentimes, though, that happens, and then they do the location change, and then they go somewhere else, and it's like the day later or whatever. At least this one, she got to be like, well, I was basically in the final. Like, I was on the boat that the final took place in. I got to go all the way to the new place. I'm going to be at the hotel when they're done in 72 hours, and we'll all leave together, whatever. So, there's something there. But this is a brutal elimination, an absolute endurance and pain test. Because it's not just the endurance. I believe them when they say it's not just that a little snake goes by us every once in a while. There are plankton that you can't really see, but are just nibbling on our skin. And it feels like my whole body's pruned and itchy and feels weird. And I don't like being in this water. I feel like that's very real. And that was the real test, is like putting up with that in combo with, do you have any form? Are you able to stay calm, reserve as much energy to last longer in the endurance challenge that it is? It felt very Inferno 2-esque, if I do say so, as far as the design of it. I know almost all the eliminations happen at night, but when they're in the arena, it's all lit up. You don't like feel like it's at night. They've done a few challenges in the water at night before in the history of the show, and they always just look really cool and look really badass and scary, and this one did all of those things as well. For Cara, super tough loss in something that, yes, she is less comfortable in the water than Tori and then a lot of people. She is, talked about, we saw last week, the swimming still is not Cara's strong suit, but this isn't swimming. It's treading water. And so, yes, being comfortable in the water, matters. Form definitely matters as far as being able to use the least amount of energy to keep yourself up, all of that. But it is much closer than if this was a swim and it was like, well, Cara's kind of shitty at swimming, so like this is over. Like I didn't go into this being like this is done for Cara because they weren't swimming, they were treading water. Still advantage Tori, but not the same. And so yeah, great season for Cara Maria. I was reminded that we get the reminder because and 2 points in at the end of this. One, Bananas taking the shot at Polly, but then Cara at the end with the confirming, with the karma vote that she hasn't spoken to Polly all season, and she's wondered why she isn't allowed to call him the way everyone else gets called their loved ones. And it's because he was on the season and he placed a karma vote and he can't share that info with anyone still in the game. So they are not allowed to communicate. And it reminded me yeah, she had this pretty good season and got right up to the very, very end after losing her real life actual romantic partner in her best ally in the game, who was on a different era, which would have been even more helpful on night one. So to lose that on night one and, rebound and get all the way to the very, very end right before the final like this is a really, really good season, no matter how that path was walked. And as big of a Michele fan as I am, and I'm as big as it gets as far as Michele in the world of the challenge. Love, love, love. Favorite new era female for sure. With that said, damn if a Cara, Tori, Rachel, Jenny final wouldn't have been amazing. If we're only going to take 4 women and 4 men to the final, there was a part of me that majority of me wants Michele to win. That would be amazing. But there was a part of me when it was down to Tori and Michele in the daily challenge of all right, just let Michele lose. Let her bow out right here. Amazing season. Wonderful. Let's watch this Cara, Tori, Rachel, Jenny showdown for the ages in the final. That would have been pay-per-view stuff. It still is going to be pay-per-view stuff, and I'm still thrilled Michele is there. But it is tough to lose Cara. It's tough to lose the last person every season, but having it be someone we were also excited to have back and would love to see in a final again is definitely tough. But Tori is in there, and some may be very bummed about that. I am not one of those. I am more often than not a very big Tori fan and supporter, and have loved everything this season. It is the only thing I haven't gotten to talk about the last couple weeks is she's racked up more daily challenge wins versus this stacked female cast and really put herself up there. She, at this point, I feel like with this season she has had, whether she wins the final or gets last in the final, between all the individual daily challenge wins versus this group of women, but and now adding wins over Casey and Cara in elimination, they don't need to etch her in the still incorrect analogy Mount Rushmore like they did a week or 2 ago. But all-time status, all-time great is definitely earned in my book. She's a beast. She's definitely proven that. And then some with this season, regardless of how the final goes, in a final which I very much think she could win. But I'm not going to predict she wins the final. And you know why? Because she's screwed for the final. Because almost 3 hours of treading water into the night before you start at what is going to at least be a 2-day final, if not longer. And I bet the food on the Sinister ain't that good. I bet they're not allowing her to refuel that well. We don't know what the sleeping is going to be in this first night, but I bet it's not great in any circumstances. So yeah, I know, Derek has the disadvantage on the men's side going in, but Tori has a massive disadvantage having just had to do that final. And we've seen this before. We saw, it was All-Stars 2 All-Stars 2, Janelle and Darrell. Am I getting that right? All the All-Star seasons kind of run together. Anyways, many of them we've seen, I think it was Janelle and Darrell, right? Yeah, on All-Stars 2. Literally from the elimination into the first overnight to start the final. We've seen things like this before, and it's why don't go into the elimination right before the final. Even if you win, you're at this disadvantage. I get it, but I think it doesn't rule Tori out from winning, but it's a lot to overcome. You got to be so tired from doing that. So tired. And now the final hasn't even started. Speaking of that final, let's get to it. Let's preview a little bit what is to come in the new year. Again, I think there's no episode the next 2 Wednesday nights. If there is, I will be here and I will cover it, and that'll be a fun. What better Christmas gift than a finale of a challenge, or New Year's gift than a finale of the challenge? But I think it's going to be on the 8th, so we'll come back then. But to preview it a little bit, we saw a little bit of a preview of it, and we got a good glimpse of a lot of different things that they're going to be doing. They will be going back and forth from the boat. I kind of assumed that once we saw the boat, it would be weird if they were truly on the boat the whole time. It's like, there's no endurance at all, like of any kind, or is there just going to be treadmills and bikes? That's going to be boring. But they're obviously going to be going to land and back, swimming, paddling, something of that nature. And so if they got to go to land and back, and they are, I would assume, swimming or paddling, that means that there might be a lot of swimming and or paddling in this and less running. And if there's a lot of swimming and paddling, I think that favors Jordan for sure on the men's side, the swimming especially. And I think it works against Kyland a little bit. Bananas called him a bad swimmer in last week's episode, but it seemed like he did fine from like what we saw of it. So I don't know if he's actually a bad swimmer or not, but for sure favors Jordan on the men's side. On the women's side, favors Michele. If they're swimming heavy, Michele can swim. If it's paddling heavy, Rachel can paddle. So I think that's where that lies. We do see a couple of the puzzles that are going to be going down, and they look hard. There's a big memory puzzle. We see a physical little statue one on the beach. We see whatever they're dealing with in the overnight section. The puzzles look pretty hard. They do involve lots of physical effort, though. The memory one, we see that they're going to have to swim under the boat to see the puzzle and then climb up into the boat to put the puzzle together. Now, this favors Michele on the women's side from the puzzle standpoint, but with that much physicality attitude of like, you got to swim down and then climb up. Like if it was just a memory puzzle, Michelle's going to smoke. You got to do all that physical part with it. It slows her down like we saw in this daily challenge and, kind of evens the field a little bit. I would have said this favors Kyland, but I would say really on the men's side, the puzzle part, I'm kind of going in like thinking it's mostly equal. Like all these people have done really well at puzzles at different times when they've been asked to, and have occasionally dropped the ball on a puzzle when they've had to. And so I think it's pretty equal there. The overnight aspect does look pretty brutal as far as like the conditions of this like room, and they're not working on bombs, but they make it look like they're working on something, and I'm guessing they're not gonna get sleep, and it's disgusting and gross and challenging, the whole thing. I think that favors in a big, big way Bananas, Jordan, and Tori, who have done a bunch of these, who have done a bunch of overnight finals. We heard Rachel in this episode be like, I've never done an overnight final. I don't think Derek has either. The All-Stars final that he was just on was not overnight, or at least he wasn't maybe there for the overnight portion. I forget. Either way, Bananas, Jordan, Tori have done a bunch of those. Definitely favors them. So that's just a few ideas based on what we saw about it. Checking in on our preseason predictions. And guess what? We're only doing this because I did really, really well. And I'm stoked on it. Silly me, I thought there would at least be 10 people in a final, which is ridiculous that there isn't. But I got all 4 women right. I predicted 5, so I was 4 out of 5 again. But I said Jenny, Michele, Tori, Rachel, and Laurel. And I can't believe that I got it all right. Because, again, I'm not counting. If I would have said Cara, then I'd be like, I really got 5 out of 5. Laurel was gone a while ago. But 4 out of 5, pretty incredible. And then I got all 4, pretty incredible. Very, very pumped about this. On the men's side, not as good, but I still got 2 right. I had Paulie, Jordan, Darrell, Bananas, and Corey. Obviously, Paulie and Darrell, early exits, or early, middle, and late exit for all 3. Jordan, Bananas got right. So I feel pretty good that 6 of the 8 people in the final I predicted. I've definitely never done that well as far as finalist predictions. And both of my winners picks, the Jays, going with the Jays, Jenny and Jordan, are there and looking good and coming in fresh off of daily challenge wins. And therefore, I am not changing a thing. I feel so good about those predictions. And as much part of me wants to change to Rachel and Jordan. If I hadn't made predictions before and it was just purely going in, I'd be pretty torn between Rachel and Jenny, and I'd only be discounting Michele because I think the physicality is gonna catch up to her, and Tori because of the 3 hours she just spent treading water is like puts her like a half notch below Jenny and Rachel for me. But I think I might have ended up leaning leaning Jenny even in that scenario, but certainly because I picked her from the start. And again, I liked what I saw, that she was able to get through the asthma thing on this very long endurance daily challenge today. And so I'm sticking with my winner's pick from the beginning of the season. This would be the second time ever. I've done it once before. I think this is like the 9th season of the challenge that I've ever covered on the podcast. And once before, I have gotten the winner prediction right. That was Ride or Dies, predicted Tori and Devin, nailed it, gotten it wrong. And I don't have the actual stats. I've not just gotten it wrong. I usually pick someone that doesn't even make the final. So I'm not very good at this. So the fact that I might get one right for a second time, I'm very, very excited about. So I'm rooting for Jordan. I'm rooting for Jenny. I'm not rooting for Jenny. I take that back. The women's side, I'm rooting completely equally. I am going to be thrilled. I think the storylines are great for any of those 4 women winning. I think it's stacked. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be great to watch the whole thing. And I mean, I'm rooting for Michele, I guess, out of all 4, because I think that'd be amazing for her. And she's my favorite new era player. But like, I'm a big Tori person. I'm a big Jenny person. I'm a big Rachel person. So I'm going to be thrilled with whoever wins. I'm just hoping for a good battle. On the men's side, you know, it obviously, if Bananas wins, that means something big. And if Jordan wins, that means something big as far as, we're talking the best ever. Jordan's sneaking into there in that conversation, and may not just sneak in, but may usurp. Is that how you say that word? Both Bananas and CT with the win here. But if Bananas wins, he's like, hey, all right, can we quiet down about the CT thing? Can we just, I'm the best. That done. I beat Jordan in his prime, heads up, in a final again. Like, come on, give me all the flowers that so many of you try to hold back from giving him most of the time, deservedly so. So there's a lot on the line. And it'd be amazing to see Derek win, of course, and it'd be absolutely amazing to see Kylan and see an Era 4, a newbie, a CBS person coming over, a Big Brother person coming over and winning the Battle of the Eras. I mean, that would definitely be, for the future of the show, that might be the best case thing we could get out of this, would maybe be Michele and Kylan bringing it home. Like, we got some faces for the next handful of seasons here of the show. But I'm probably rooting for Jordan. I typically end up defaulting there, and with Corey gone, I think that's where I'm going. So I'm definitely rooting for Jenny and Jordan, just because I want to be right, and I'm rooting for a great, fun 1 episode finale. 1 episode. We don't need 2, just one, because I think the reunion is going to be really, really good, and they can make that multiple 2, 3, whatever you want, because I think that's going to be really, really good. So that's it for this episode. Thank you again, as always, for being here. Again, if we're correct and there's no episodes in the next 2 weeks, we will be back on the 8th when the next episode airs and talk about the finale. If there is an episode on Christmas or New Year's and they change course again as they did this week, then we will be back then to discuss it. So thanks as always for being here. I will get back to all of you on Instagram that have messaged that I have not responded to, and anyone else that wants to talk challenge, I will be more active in responding there in a much quicker fashion nowadays. So reach out there at Challenge Historian. Follow, subscribe wherever you're listening. I will talk to you next week. Until then, peace.